I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room.
What's going on, everybody? Jacob Courtwright here with yet another Saturday morning pick'ems with the boys. And of course, because the Oregon Ducks are back in town, because our faithful Ducks are here, I had to bring my man Steve back on the show. Steve, thanks again for being with me. Love you, brother. Excited to talk some Ducks action today with you. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing just wonderful, buddy. Listen, it's been a long time coming. We can get right. This is going to be great.
This is, of course, everybody. I'm just going to put it out first. The Oregon Ducks is the game of the day. I know that there's some other more profile games that we could be talking about for that slot, but because I'm the host and because I'm a Ducks guy, we've got to start end the day with the Oregon Ducks with the game of the day. But let's start off with number 23 Michigan versus number 13 Indiana, and I did not stutter. I just said number 13 Indiana. Now Indiana has lost 24 straight to Michigan. And the fun fact with this is Michigan is also a 24-point favorite against Indiana on this coming Saturday. The problem is how much of Michigan's offensive line is going to impact the football game. Every single year, this is the biggest problem with Michigan. How the offensive line goes is how the offense goes. Michigan lost when their offensive line gave up 2.6 sacks for a quarter, which blows my mind that they had that many sacks in a quarter, and they couldn't move the football on the ground, which is Michigan's biggest weakness right now is that offensive line. And the Indiana defense is the best in the conference right now, tied for third in interceptions, also tied for third in sacks. Indiana's offense is a little bit shaky, though. They are their conference worst, 2.7 yards on the ground. Penix Jr. has not been consistent throughout the air. This is a weird matchup because I want to go Indiana here with my gut because I just like them this year. I'm kind of rooting for the underdog. But Michigan just has a record of beating this Indiana team. So I'm going to start with you. What is your outtake for this game?
Well, yes, Indiana is playing with house money. They are blowing it out of the water. And Michigan, let's not forget, Michigan's biggest downfall is the fact that they have quarterbacks year in and year out that couldn't hit water from a boat. They are awful.
Yeah.
But they also blew out Minnesota, lost a close game, and I like them in a bounce back against an Indiana team that I think may be a little overhyped, as much as I hate to say
Yeah.
it.
I completely agree with you here. I think this is a close game. The problem I have here is I don't think Penix Jr. has the arm talent to eventually finish the game like he needs to. Michigan is pretty good against the run, which is Indiana's strong suit from the quarterback position, not as a whole because they're pretty terrible as a whole. But I just don't think Penix Jr. can make enough plays. I say 27-24, close game. Michigan ekes this one out. Now we're going to move on to some Pac-12 games. Number 20, USC versus Arizona State. This is a very interesting matchup, especially if you're a Pac-12 guy, because Arizona State is always one of those teams that just seems to knock off good opponents at the right time. But Kendon Slavis for USC is coming off of a Pac-12 Offensive Freshman of the Year award. From wide receiver to running back to offensive line to defensive back, this USC team is finally reloading in the sense that they're getting back to what they used to be back in the 80s and 90s, which is a great football team. But they're very young, very inexperienced. Besides an experienced quarterback by only 2 years, they really don't have a lot of depth at the wide receiver, running back, and offensive line position that's been there that is in the upper class. So it's all a lot of freshmen, redshirt freshmen. But they are having an impressive year this year for Arizona State because they have a Jaden Daniels quarterback that is a dual threat nightmare. He's posting 12 touchdowns to only 2 interception ratio for the season last year. He's right on track to probably break that this year. Now, his biggest problem is he is missing his big studs and Brandon Ayuk, who everybody knows is a freak of nature, a freak athlete. And then the running back, Benjamin, who also left to go to the NFL. The problem is their defense just can't keep up with a USC offense that just seems to be a little bit more experienced than them right now. But I still, at the end of the day, am never going to count Arizona State out because this is what they do. They take it down to the wire in close matchups. I am going to go USC in a win here, but I'm going to have it close, 38-36. I just think USC's quarterback and that a little bit more experience for that offensive line for USC just tips them over the edge. What do you think?
I think USC hasn't been USC since the Pete Carroll, Reggie Bush days where they were just stacked all the way down.
Oh, yeah.
I think they're getting a little bit back to that form. Over the last few years, they've had a couple receivers, a couple running backs, as opposed to just the one threat on the outside.
Yeah.
And Arizona State is always good for an upset, a little too early. So I think USC comes in and just close through the first half, blows through the second half.
That is a great point. Arizona State usually has that upset in week 8 when it's like, are the Ducks going to make the college football playoff? No, we lose to Arizona State in a week 8 matchup where they put up 500 total yards. That is just what they do. I completely agree with you. I just think it's a little bit too early for this Arizona State team, and losing so many offensive weapons and their defense basically depleted from last year. It's just not enough for the little bit of experience that USC has. I think USC is an up and coming in the Pac-12 to get back to a championship. They're probably the next big dog besides, of course, Oregon, and that's just not bias. That's just simple facts right now. But they still have a ways to go. Now let's go to a more fun game in my eyes. I've talked about Liberty probably more than Liberty has talked about Liberty. But number 25, Liberty versus Virginia Tech. Malik Willis is a stud for Liberty, posting 67% completions and 9-to-1 touchdown ratio for the year. Willis is also a strong runner, getting 7 touchdowns on the ground for 460 yards for the year. Their offensive line struggles against a rush, though, and they're going up against a Virginia Tech team that all they like to do apparently is blitz, because they have guys that have 2.9 sacks. They have 5 of those guys. And then, of course, they have Justin Reed, who has 4.5 sacks on the year, averaging a half sack a game. So the problem is can Liberty's offensive line hold up against a crazy rushing defense like Virginia Tech? Now, on the offensive side of the football for Virginia Tech, they finally got into their element, and that is having Herbert in the backfield, rushing like we know he can. They put up 42 points last week on only 10 passes. So they just dominated the ground game last week against Louisville. Can Liberty basically keep up with the offense and make plays? And that is the big question here. What do you think about this game?
I think, first off, I think Liberty's way better than Louisville.
Agree.
So I think that you got to take that out of the equation. I have bet against Liberty week in and week out. Not this time. I'm going with Liberty. I'm done fighting it. They're going to win.
Well, that is so funny because everybody, I've kind of been the only one that's picked Liberty in all of the matchups, but this week I'm going to stick with Liberty. Until Liberty proves to me that they can't get it done, I just can't shy away from them. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game for Liberty, probably somewhere in the 28-21 range. Virginia Tech's going to maintain a lot of the time of possession on the ground, but I just think Willis gets it done in a couple of insane plays simply off of his athleticism on the running aspect, and then, of course, in the throwing aspect as well. Great game here. Don't sleep on this one, but I think Liberty squeaks it out and continues to stay undefeated this week. Moving on, we've got an SEC matchup of the week. Number 8, Florida versus number 5, Georgia. As usual, the Georgia offense can put up yards, but they struggle to put up points. They are averaging 6.1 yards per play, which is crazy to think. But their offense is only averaging 29.6 points, which if you look at the two aspects of those, they should be averaging around the 42-point mark with those yard margins. It starts with the of Stenson Bennett. Can Stenson Bennett really push a ball to the end zone, or is he just a simple game manager like we see so often in, especially I was going to bring up Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles in Chicago, but I don't want to hurt you too much. But just somebody who's a game manager who can't make the big throws down the field. We saw those struggles against Alabama. I think we're going to continue to see those struggles. Because if you look at the two quarterbacks, he's going up against the nation's best quarterback statistically right now in Kyle Trask. He has 1,300 yards, 18 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions on the year. While the Florida defense is a little bit inconsistent, their offense is going to carry them to a lot of wins this year. I'm going to go Florida 27, Georgia 24. I just think Florida has way too many playmakers on the offense, and they inevitably get it done. We saw that struggle with Georgia and Alabama. Their defense can only hold up so much, and we saw Henry Ruggs in that offense prevail for Alabama late in the game. Think we see that same thing here, and Florida takes this one. What do you think?
I think that you have Georgia's defense, which is going to be the stoutest defense that Florida's had to play so far.
Yes.
And historically, Florida's DBs have been their strength.
Mm-hmm.
I think Georgia's not going to test it. They're not going to push it. And I think that defense is going to carry them through. I'm going Georgia in this one. Close game, but I think that ultimately their depth at every position is going to be what carries them through.
Well, that's the hard part about a Georgia team is, yeah, you have Cook in the backfield. The problem is you have 5 Cooks behind him. So it's kind of like that Alabama aspect where they just always have another body to throw at you. And that's a good point. I don't know if they're going to test the Florida waters throughout the air, which is their strong suit, their safeties and their corners. So if they don't test them throughout the air and they maintain time of possession, I can very well see a simple Georgia win here in a very probably low-scoring game if they maintain that time of possession somewhere around like 21-14. But at the end of the day, I love Kyle Trask, and I think I'm just rooting for Florida a little bit too much this year. But I just like Florida this year, man. I like the tight end. Both of them are Trask, actually. So I like both of those guys. I just think that their offense is top-notch in the SEC, and I'd love to see them push Alabama towards the end of the year. But we are going to move on to number 1, Clemson versus number 4, Notre Dame. What a lot of people are going to complain, that should be the game of the day. But, hey, it's Duck season, so we've got to go with the Ducks today. First and foremost, the battle of the top is here. But will it have to be played without Trevor Lawrence? Yes, we have got the official word today that Trevor Lawrence will not play. There was a little bit of hope earlier in the day or in the evening Friday night that Trevor Lawrence might be cleared, but he is not. So true freshman Ugalali had a great week last week in a close game against Boston College. He put up 31 of 41 for 2 touchdowns in the air, also had a rushing touchdown late. With inconsistency in the run game and blocking for Clemson, it's going to be tough for their offense to get going right out of the gate. That is where the true freshman really has to step up and show out. Otherwise, they are in need, or they are going to be in trouble with a Notre Dame team that is a heavy time of possession. 57% of their plays are on the ground, and they are averaging 6.1 yards a play thus far this season. So what they do to teams is the old-fashioned way. They grind you down to the point of you have 2 minutes left on the clock. We've rushed for 250 yards for the game, and it's going to be a 14-7 contest at the end of the day. When they're playing big games like this. So the problem is can Clemson's offense come out the gate and finally snap like we have seen, of course, with Trevor Lawrence at the helm, but with the true freshman in DJ? That is the big question here because Notre Dame is solid all the way through. Ian Book is not going to put up 400 yards. They're going to have simply 6.1 yards on the ground with 4 and 5 running backs that they can just continually throw out there. I am going to go Clemson, though. Until Clemson, it's one of those things as well. Until Clemson really shows me that they can't get it done with their great defense, I've got to stick with them, but it is going to be a tough matchup. 28-24, Clemson runs away with this towards the end of the game. I just think DJ maybe makes 1 or 2 plays with his legs to finish it out. What do you think about this game?
I think that Notre Dame is one of the most inconsistent teams in college football today. Ian Book can look like Aaron Rodgers, and he can look like Jordan Rodgers. I think he has the potential to carry the Notre Dame past Clemson. The real issue I have is the fact that you gave Dabo a couple weeks with DJ to game plan on this.
Yep.
Against Boston College, he was a 2-day replacement.
Yeah.
So I think now that he's got a full game plan in place for him, I think Notre Dame's in trouble. I think Notre Dame will do what they should do. They'll stack the box. They'll make Etienne work for every yard he gets. But when you start stacking the box, that slant over the top is going to be wide open for him, and I think that's going to be what carries Clemson.
Well, what a lot of people don't know is DJ is a true freshman. So everybody was talking about how he was shaky last week. Like this guy is literally fresh blood. He just walked out there for the first time this season. So it's not like he's a red shirt or he has a ton of experience. Giving him another week builds up his confidence, especially getting a win under his belt. He started to look a lot better in that fourth quarter against Boston College, and that's where you saw Clemson inevitably prevail. And just at the end of the day, like you said, Notre Dame's just too inconsistent. And that's what they've always been. You know, they're a college football playoff team one week, and then they face a team like Clemson, and they really show their true colors. And I just see them repeating the past over and over again. So I stick with this one. I think it's almost a for sure win for Clemson if their offense can eventually, put up points to start out that game tomorrow. Now we're
Well,
going to
and
go.
you don't want to forget,
Oh, go ahead.
he is the number one pocket passer coming out of high school for a reason.
This
So
is true.
give him an extra week and a little confidence. He's 6'5", 250.
Yeah. Yeah, he missed a couple of outside throws to his left
Mhm.
last week, and like they said after the game, he came out and said it was just a touch and feel thing. And once he settled in, he made two of those big throws in the third and fourth quarter, which gave him a first down, and then one of them led to a touchdown. So now that he's starting to get comfortable, I mean, this guy is a freak of nature, and he's going to make sure that Clemson has a legacy after Trevor Lawrence leaves and goes to the Jets probably this coming season. So I really like that kid, and I think Dabo is one of the most talented coaches in all of football. What he can do with young talent is prevailing week in and week out. This wide receiver core was bashed at the beginning of the year for not being consistent, not having enough studs, and this wide receiver core looks just as good as Higgins did last year in that wide receiver core. So there's just no drop off with him and how he can get kids to play at their highest level. So Clemson, I fully expect Clemson to honestly be in that championship at the end of the year. I just don't see a lot of teams that can match up with them defensively, and then offensively, they just seem to have a crazy amount of players. Just anywhere you go, just plug in stars. So yeah, Clemson got this one. But let's move on to the game of the day, the one we are dying to talk about. Number 12, Oregon comes in and plays Stanford for the opening week. One of the best rivals in all of the Pac-12. There's been a lot of heartache. There's been a lot of cheers when it comes to this rivalry. But the Pac-12 champs, the Rose Bowl champs, they open up their season with this division rival. The Ducks are starting this season losing some of its best players, though. Justin Herbert is now a starter in the NFL, doing very good with the Chargers. He's breaking records left and right, matching Patrick Mahomes-like numbers in his first few starts. So great seeing Justin be a success there. Penei Sewell, the number one recruited offensive lineman. He's going to be number one taken in the draft. Did not opt back into play after the whole COVID situation, which if you're going to be probably a top 3 pick, it's very hard to wager, do I play in college and maybe, get hurt or get sick, or do I just go to the NFL? Now, it does hurt me because I really like Sewell, but I understand why he's sitting out for this season. Then you also have an offensive line and a new quarterback in Tyler Shao that is going to be a little bit shaky for the Oregon Ducks. We haven't seen a lot of these offensive linemen play yet. We have very few returners and starters on that offensive line. And then Tyler Shao, we've seen him play a couple different games, most of the time in blowouts. He's always been effective. He seems to score and move the football just fine, but we have never seen him in the starting role as a quarterback, the heat of the game from start to finish. So I think he's going to rely heavily on great running back CJ Verdell, and I think CJ Verdell is going to have another standout year like he always has, if he can stay healthy, of course. They have a ton of offensive weapons, but I think the biggest things are, can that offensive line block like they have the last year and a half for these Oregon Ducks, and can Tyler Shao really show up and just be a consistent quarterback for the Oregon Ducks? So on offense, they are going to be just fine. Now, the Cardinals have a poor offensive line. They have had a poor offensive line for the last 2 seasons. They have a quarterback that not only has been very inconsistent, but they've had starters in and out of the lineup. We know that the guy who went to Mississippi State, I can't remember his name, but he was the starting quarterback for Stanford last year. He's no longer there. So in and out of the quarterback lineup, they're still not naming a starting quarterback for tomorrow. So I don't know if that's just simply they don't know, or if I know there was 2 quarterbacks on the injury list prior to this game. So I don't know if that's injury related as well. So with uncertainty at quarterback, a non-existent running game the last 2 seasons, they look to really beef that up. do the Cardinals have enough on offense to keep up with a high-paced Oregon offense? If there's one thing about Oregon, we know they're going to score points. And if you're Stanford, this is not one of those grind-out games where it's going to be 14-7 against the Ducks. The Ducks have too many offensive weapons. They're going to score the football because the Stanford defense, even though they have a couple great defensive linemen, are not great across the board in the back. They have a couple true freshmen starting at safety and cornerback. It's going to be very dicey for them. And Oregon's defense, when it comes to them, I mean, the guys that we are returning, it just blows my mind. Lenore, Scott, Thibodeau. We have Justin Flows, who literally is the Jahil Okafor of the Oregon Ducks at linebacker position, at the 5-star true freshman to replace Troy Dye, who actually got his first start this week with the Vikings, and he did pretty well. So the Oregon's defense, I just think is too stacked this year for the Stanford team. Our offense just has way too many weapons that even if the run game isn't too successful, I still think Tyler Schroe could get it done in good fashion here. I'm going to say Oregon 28-14. I know that's a little generous. A lot of people have this as a 6 to 5 point spread. I just don't see a pathway where Stanford can really keep up offensively or defensively. And if they have to put it through the air and they can't be successful on the ground, Oregon has the second best secondary in all of the country statistically right now before we've even played a game. So all that being said, I think Oregon takes this 28-14 in a very fun opener for Duck fans as we see a team that we honestly expect to be back in the Rose Bowl and or especially in this Pac-12 championship at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. I think the thing that we also have to remember is we're losing some starters on the line. Cristobal is an offensive line coach for Alabama.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about the toughness that he's going to bring the offensive line. Verdell in the backfield is going to be just a godsend for us.
Yeah.
And a good running game is the best friend of a quarterback, especially one with some shakes and some nerves in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And one thing we can't count out, the minute COVID happened, Stanford had some sort of a virtual reality practice that they were running.
Yep.
So they're up on everything. Listen. But, all right, Oregon, big, not even close.
Yeah.
All right.
I wanted to be generous here because I didn't want to go full Justin here because we have a lot of people that write in about like I have this game by 8 touchdowns. Like 8, that's like together, and he's like, no, I have this team winning by 8. So I didn't want to go too high, but I still think Oregon's offense is just going to be too much at the end of the day. Mario Cristobal, what he's doing for this program, what he's doing for Oregon in the future is incredible. We are now jumped to 3rd in the country in recruiting for next year, which a lot of people don't know. I do want to throw a little shade out here to Seth. Tennessee is now down 7 spots all the way behind Oregon. So it's kind of crazy to see what Cristobal has done, and it comes with his roots from Alabama. And he's trying to make Pac-12 like in Alabama, like in Auburn, a Georgia, which is aggressive line play, great defensive backs, and good running backs. And if we can rely on those aspects, especially in a Pac-12 that's not strong on those suits, I think the Ducks are going to be very successful for seasons to come. I fully expect Cristobal to be our long-term coach. I know a lot of people have said that, is he going to go up to the NFL? There's been talks with that, but I truly believe Cristobal is the kind of guy that will be at Oregon for years to come. Dwayne The Rock Johnson likes him. I mean, so if Dwayne likes you, you're in a good spot. But I just see Oregon having a great year. I'm projecting them, of course, Pac-12 champions once again. And then depending on what happens with bowl games and COVID, I fully expect probably another Rose Bowl show up again.
Seeing as we have a shortened season, the only 7 games, and the other conferences are playing a few more games, I think it's important to not only win, but win with a little bit of style, a little bit of flair. So a lot of those closer games where Cristobal maybe pulled back a little bit, I don't know that you're going to have that same pullback this year.
Yeah.
And I think we are going to see a lot of points, a lot of blitzing in the fourth quarter. I think there's going to be a lot more aggression out there.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it. You know,
I'm very so this defense. Listen, this is one of the best Oregon defenses we have ever seen. Scott and Lenore finally opting back in. Scott, of course, is our big staple at the nose tackle. Our defensive end, Thibodeau, is just a freak of nature. We just continually, like DeForest Buckner, guys like that just keep popping up for Oregon. And now that we're starting to get the 5-star Alabama guys and Texas guys and Florida guys, look out in the future because Oregon is on its way to be a monster, not only in the Pac-12, but we are starting to face SEC competition every year now. So I think we're starting to make these slow steps up, and it might be painful at first. We might lose a couple of these games like we did to Auburn last year. We were supposed to play Ohio State this year, which I'm not saying thank the Lord, but I'm saying because Justin Fields is kind of insane right now. But we're facing Georgia in 2021, so I can't wait to see where this Ducks team goes. Can't say how enough excitement I have. I actually have word on the street that I can be getting you Mario Cristobal's email because, hey, I've got a wife that's got connections right now. So I told Mario Cristobal that I was going to send him a good luck email. So we'll have to post that on our Instagram for everybody to read. But, hey, go Ducks. I'm excited that I'm going to be in town to watch the game with you, just like our normal traditions. So I'm sure there will be pizza rolls, touchdowns, and us yelling about Oregon Ducks very quietly as your beautiful daughters are sleeping and it's wee into the hours of the night.
That's the way to do it. Really the only way to do it. So.
Well, Steve, once again, thank you so much. I know that you've taken time out of your day, so we really appreciate it. Hey, make sure you're following us on Instagram. You all playing along. It's been so fun seeing the messages and everybody else DMing. So keep it up. It's so fun. We still don't have a perfect picker. There's always just one or two upsets a week that keep getting everybody. Maybe this is the week that we can announce a perfect picker. And remember, it is cash prizes at the end of the year for whoever gets the most, and I'm keeping track. And for the finale, just letting you know, if you put in your vote after the game is already completed and or in the third quarter, it doesn't count, guys. There's a lot of you that do it, and I know when you do it. So I'm just saying, this comes out same time every week. Get to that Instagram, Locker Room Podcast 615. I got Steve tagged in there as well. Show him some love. He's got my beautiful nieces that need some love and need a lot of people to like their pictures. So make sure you're with Steve as well. We appreciate it, bud. I'm sure we'll have you on very soon and can't wait to watch our Ducks take victory.
Go Liberty.
Go Liberty and go Ducks. See you guys. See you on the next one. We here at the Locker Room thank you for joining us on this Saturday morning pick'em. If you'd like to know how to play along at home, it is simple. You will now see a slide with all of my social media. Follow me on Instagram every Saturday morning and you can vote. At the end of the college football season, I will pick a winner for a cash prize for whoever gets the most right answers. So make sure you follow my social media. That is the only way to lock in your answer. You must follow, then join along and play.